Sometimes, upon first glance of a fighter, the potential is apparent and championship hopes are placed upon him or her. Maybe it's an athletic phenom who's shown a clear aptitude for the complexities of the sport, or maybe they've excelled in a related discipline and are now transitioning into MMA. Or maybe it's a personality that engages the crowd and ensures some favorable matchmaking. And of course, maybe there's a lot of overlap and somebody checks all of these boxes. But taking a look at the list of those who have held world titles, there are quite a few who never fit neatly into any of these categories and defied expectations. I'm Tom from MMA On Point, and here are 10 unlikely UFC champions. Number 10, TYRON Woodley. To be fair, maybe Woodley doesn't exactly fit into some of the criteria of this list, because very early on he was looked at as a top prospect with championship potential, due in part to his NCAA All-American wrestling credentials. In fact, as he rose through the ranks of Strikeforce's welterweight division, he was considered as a challenger for Nick Diaz's belt until Stockton's favourite son went back to the UFC. And while he did come up short against Nate Marquardt for that vacant title, when he did make the move after the merger, he quickly established himself as a real threat to the division with highlight reel knockouts. Even when ill-timed losses against Jake Shields and Rory McDonald stifled his progress, he never seemed far from the title picture. But just when things seemed lined up for the chosen one, a weird set of circumstances made things complicated. After taking time off to heal a serious foot injury, his #1 contender bout with Johnny Hendricks was scrapped due to the latter not making weight, and he decided to wait for a title shot. With the winner of the fight promised an opportunity against Robbie Lawler, Woodley believed Hendricks' failure in preparation meant he was next up. With 18 months since his last appearance and Wonderboy Thompson remaining active with just spectacular wins in the meantime, it looked like this move and his stubbornness would come back to haunt him. However, instead, his patience was actually rewarded and Woodley KO'd his then fellow ATT member to win the belt. Number 9, Brock Lesnar. The entrance of Brock Lesnar into the sport of MMA was met with much speculation and curiosity. But unless you were a die-hard pro wrestling fan new to the world of unscripted combat, you probably didn't think he would become as successful as he was. Even though he was a former NCAA wrestling champion, by the time he made his way to MMA, he was actually 7 years removed from that accomplishment. On top of that, Lesnar previously flirted with a stint in the NFL, but after declining an offer to play in the European League, he returned to pro wrestling. So it would have been fair to wonder if his MMA ambitions would fizzle out the way they did with the NFL. Defeating the unheralded late replacement Min So Kim didn't exactly excite anyone outside of the casuals, so when Frank Mir submitted Lesnar in the first round of his UFC debut, there were a lot of I told you so's as a championship caliber fighter spoilt his first octagon appearance. After rebounding in a dominating performance against Heath Herring, his popularity and hordes of crossover fans prompted the UFC to give him a shot against the legendary Randy Couture. And despite being a novice in MMA with only 3 fights experience compared to a man who already had 25 fights and multiple championship stints under his belt, much to the dismay of purists, Lesnar's size and raw athleticism proved to be just too much for the Hall of Famer, who relinquished his belt via TKO in the second round. Number 8, Robert Whittaker. When Robert Whittaker suffered 2 straight losses a year removed from winning the Ultimate Fighter Smashes, he was written off by many as just another tough winner who couldn't live up to the glory of past season winners. A violent ending courtesy of a Wonderboy Thompson punch flurry looked like a moment that would force Whittaker out of contendership and ensure winning the reality show would be his greatest accomplishment in the sport. But after getting one more win at 170 pounds, he turned to the middleweight division for a rebrand. But of course, if his chin couldn't hold up to a welterweight like Thompson, what would he look like against bigger and heavier opponents? Well, it didn't take too long to shock critics as he would debut at 185 pounds with a TKO over Clint Hester. The success continued as Bobby Knuckles would collect scalps from names like Brad Tavares, Derek Brunson, and Jacare Souza, roster while collecting 5 bonus checks during the incredible 6-fight streak since moving up the scale. His efforts would be rewarded with a shot at interim gold, with Michael Bisping angled for his GSP super fight. Standing in his way though was the destructive force known as Yoel Romero, but Whittaker would earn another bonus check in addition to the belt after defeating Romero in an action-packed 5-round decision. Fair play to you, Bobby Knuckles. Number 7, Robbie Lawler. When Dana White considers you his Christmas present to himself, there are certainly expectations that come with that. Robbie Lawler initially lived up to that hype, starting off his career with a decision over the well-experienced vet Aaron Riley, and following it up with 2 consecutive knockout victories over Steve Berger and Tiki Gosson. It looked like Dana's Christmas today was better than Tickle Me Elmo. In fact, the Berger knockout at UFC 37.5 was selected as the sole fight aired on Fox's Best Damn Sports Show period, and cemented the promotion's backing of the young up-and-comer. But after getting finished 3 times in his next 4 fights, Lawler's hype train derailed and he found himself outside of the UFC. While Lawler did get some good wins and even picked up the Elite XC middleweight title, he was still considered a prospect who never quite lived up to what he could have been. After a mixed run in Strikeforce, Lawler found himself back in the UFC after the promotion was bought by Zuffa. But after another 1-3 run to finish out his time in Strikeforce, Lawler's return was largely unheralded. This coincided with him realizing that he had asthma, so he decided to make a move to a more humid climate, thus beginning his time at American Top Team in Florida. It was there that Ruthless would find his footing and violently take over the welterweight division and hold the belt in 2 incredible title defenses. Number 6, Forrest Griffin. Our first impressions of Forrest Griffin were lightly rooted in his sometimes goofy personality and dogged determination, which were on full display during the first season of The Ultimate Fighter. But although he emerged as the tournament winner and is credited for saving the promotion with his back and forth war with Stephan Bonnar, he wasn't exactly considered a threat to the title. Not considered among the most athletic in the light heavyweight division and not necessarily a powerhouse in any particular discipline, a road to the belt looked highly unlikely despite how beloved he actually was. Losses to former champ like Tito Ortiz and then surging contender Keith Jardine cemented this idea to many, but the tables started to turn when Griffin was given the shitty task of welcoming Pride Grand Prix winner Shogun Rua to the octagon. Rua, whose only stumble came courtesy of a broken arm in a heavyweight fight against Mark Coleman, was considered by many to be the best in the division, and a showcase against a name like Griffin would be a star-making moment for American audiences. But of course, instead, Griffin outlasted and submitted him, propelling him into a title shot against Rampage Jackson. And again, Griffin would defy the odds and get his hand raised. This time, he would be rewarded with gold. Number 5, Rafael dos Anjos. After having some success on the regional circuit with his submission prowess, Rafael dos Anjos made his way onto the UFC roster with a debut against Jeremy Stephens at UFC 91. The only problem, besides Goldie's exaggerated and incorrect pronunciation of his name,
24-year-old Rafael dos Anjos,
was that his many efforts to force Stephens to tap were futile and the power striker put out his lights early in the final round. In his second outing in the octagon, Tyson Griffin earned the unanimous decision nod in the UFC Fight Night 18 Fight of the Night. And even though both losses showcased good moments from the Brazilian, starting your UFC career 0-2 doesn't scream champion. So Dos Anjos spent the next 6 years trying to gain footing in the title hunt, and after stringing together some impressive wins, losses against Clay Guida, Gleison Tibau and Khabib Nurmagomedov halted his momentum and forced him to the back of the line. But after coming up short against fellow future champ Khabib, RDA, partly because of his improvements to his Muay Thai under King's MMA head coach Rafael Cordeiro, began a 3-fight win streak that propelled him to a title shot against Anthony Pettis at UFC 185. In what would have seemed virtually impossible at the beginnings of his UFC run, RDA dominated the champion to capture the belt. That is a hell of a story. Number 4, Michael Bisping. After winning the 3rd season of The Ultimate Fighter, hope hopes were high for Michael Bisping. After finishing everyone he faced on the show, Bisping enjoyed an undefeated record at light heavyweight until he ran into another eventual champion in Rashad Evans. Dropping down to middleweight seemed like the right move, as a 3-fight win streak set him for a title eliminator bout opposite Dan Henderson after a return to TUF as a coach, and well, I think we all know how that played out for poor old Bisping. But within 3 years, the Count fought his way back into title contention. This time, he'd have to get through Chael Sonnen in yet another title eliminator bout. And while he would avoid being on the wrong end of a highlight reel KO, he'd still lose a tightly contested decision. From there, he'd suffer an eye injury and alternate wins and losses, including a one-sided submission defeat to Luke Rockhold. But Bisping rebounded with 3 straight wins, including a fight of the night against now former champ Anderson Silva, and fate decided to finally throw him a bone as a Chris Weidman injury left Rockhold, who had since captured the crown, without an opponent for UFC 199. Bisping accepted the call with no one giving him a chance to avenge that loss that was fresh in everyone's mind, but much to the surprise of everyone, especially a particularly arrogant Rockhold, a left hook finally brought Bisping a championship belt, and oh yeah, he did it with one eye. Number 3, Nico Montano. A record of 3-2 doesn't exactly scream UFC champion, but somehow, some way, Nico Montano found a way in modern day MMA to pull it off. With that record, Montano, who had already won King of the Cage's flyweight belt, was selected as a castmate on The Ultimate Fighter 26, and without any real women's flyweight division on the roster, the winner would be crowned the inaugural champion. Montano earned decisions in each of her fights in the house to enter the finale. A late change subbed Sijara Eubanks for Roxanne Modafferi, but Montano didn't let the switch stop her from getting her hand raised, a belt around her waist, and a fight of the night bonus check. But what did come dangerously close to stopping her was an injury she actually sustained shortly after the reality show finished taping. A badly broken foot plagued her throughout her entire training camp leading up to the finale. It actually got so bad that she says that she was unable to walk and bedridden for at least 2 weeks. And having aggravated it just a few days before, she considered pulling out and leaving her chance at gold behind. If it weren't for a cortisone shot during fight week, limited mobility would have likely forced her out. Amazingly though, she preserved for the win. From there, and unfortunately lingering health issues, including continued issues with the foot and a case of tonsillitis, delayed her return and eventually led the UFC to stripping her of the title. Number 2, Maurice Smith. When someone makes their way to the UFC nowadays, they usually collect some quality wins in other promotions. But during his time in Pancrase, Rings and Extreme Fighting, the former kickboxer earned a career record of 5-7. But despite his record, Smith was brought into the octagon for a heavyweight title shot against Mark Coleman. This was probably because he won Extreme Fighting's heavyweight belt after being granted a shot at 3-6 overall and on a 3-fight skid. Of course, the recruitment for top-level talent was much different during the early days of the UFC, as without the stronghold on the market, they were forced in many cases to take what they could. And perhaps that assessment of Smith is too harsh, but title shots and losing records just, they don't belong together. And against a decorated wrestler and undefeated champion like Coleman, it wouldn't have been far-fetched to think that Smith would have been just ragdolled and dominated on the floor, especially factoring that 5 of his losses came via submission. Instead, amazingly, Smith made the best of the situation after working diligently to close some of the holes in his game, and much to the shock of odds makers, Smith negated much of Coleman's wrestling offense and got his hand raised in a unanimous decision. And number 1, Matt Serra. When the 4th season of The Ultimate Fighter was announced, the unique hook was met with some raised eyebrows. With a cast consisting solely of UFC vets, the winner would not only be welcomed back into the promotion, but would be granted a shot at the title. The raised stakes were intriguing and gave men who otherwise considered journeymen the chance of a lifetime. But honestly, no one really considered the possibility of the tournament winner actually capturing the crown. While Travis Lutter, that season's middleweight winner, squandered his chance before the opening bell by missing weight, his welterweight counterpart had a very different idea. Matt Serra was expectedly written off as a stepping stone for Georges St-Pierre on the way to a rubber match with Matt Hughes, and as a minus 1300 favourite, the champion was extremely comfortable with his first defence. So comfortable that most of the conversation actually centred around what was next for GSP after his sure victory. But Serra accepted his underdog status as a pressure-free opportunity and decided to mix up his strategy. Known for his aggressive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game, the undersized welterweight elected to utilise improved boxing skills instead, and the change-up paid off as he forced the budding superstar to tap to strikes in the first round.
I obviously think Max won the second one, and I'm the biggest Max Holloway fan in the world. But
I thought he won it too.
Even I feel really gross about doing 3 fights in a row with the champ, you know?
Don't taunt, you little bitch. YT video on video games, great video. Thank you, Lord Carly. I appreciate it.
You came in the right time, baby. Look at that knockout. Does that mean I'm a better striker with Ben Askren than Paulo Costa? Bro! Yes! It's the jab overhand. Dude! Thank you. Shout out to Anthony Romero. I learned that at ESFL because I don't have impulse blasters like Iron Man. Wish I did.
By the way, we just got the follow from It's Chickle, and then we also got one from I'm a Pines. Oh my God.
Like literally
Speechless.
I don't know how to control this right now.
Pocket! Oh, here we go, baby. Here we go.
Hey, what's up guys? Jason here, just to let you know about our Twitch channel and our streaming schedule. We do that Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Just check our schedule at twitch.tv/MMAonPoint for more details, and then also check out our Discord. See you guys on the next stream.
Also, thanks so much to the man Ben Rosette, composer of the intro music. Please go check out his music by clicking the link in the description below and catch the latest updates on his Instagram and Twitter page at Ben Rosette. Thanks so much to Ant Walker for writing this list. You can go follow him at Ant Walker MMA. And thanks so much to Tommy Walsh for editing it. You can follow him at Big Beat Visual. Thanks for watching that video. Please do like and subscribe. We upload 3 jaw-droppingly juicy MMA videos a week to get your teeth into, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to follow us at On Point MMA and Tom A. Ransom on Twitter, and you make sure you have a great day.